The iridescent spires of the celestial palace stretched impossibly high, piercing the lavender clouds of Astrea Prime. I pressed my body against the cool crystal wall, my stealth suit adapting to match the shifting colors of the palace's exterior. The crown of Queen Alara was just 3 chambers away, and I, Kai Blackwood, was about to become the most notorious thief in 7-star systems. Security drones passing your position in 5 seconds, Nova's voice crackled through my earpiece. Hold position. I froze as the hovering sentinels glided past, their scanning beams sweeping just centimeters from my boots. My heart hammered against my ribs, but the suit's vital suppressor kept my signature calm. The moment they rounded the corner, I moved. 3 minutes until shift change, Nova reminded me. The Queen's private chambers are ahead, but I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the crown itself. Let me worry about that, I whispered, approaching the final door. Just keep the exit route clear. The lock mechanism was predictably advanced, a neural recognition scanner tied to the Queen's personal guard. Fortunately, I had the override chip stolen from Captain Thorne himself, currently sleeping off a sedative in a maintenance closet, wearing considerably less armor than when our evening began. The door slid open silently, revealing a chamber bathed in soft blue light. And there it was, the celestial crown, floating above a pedestal of pure energy. Even from across the room, I could feel its power, a subtle vibration in the air that made my skin tingle. It's more beautiful than the Holos, I breathed, approaching slowly. The crown was an intricate lattice of luminescent metal that seemed to shift between states of matter, now solid, now liquid light, now something else entirely. Embedded within were 7 stellar fragments, each pulsing with the concentrated essence of a different star. According to my client, the crown was merely a symbol of Astrian royalty. But standing before it now, I knew that was a lie. This was a technological marvel beyond anything I'd seen. I removed the quantum disruptor from my pack and calibrated it to the crown's energy field. 1 pulse should disable the security measures long enough for me to. I wouldn't do that if I were you, came a melodic voice from behind me. I spun around, disruptor still raised, to find myself face to face with Queen Alara herself. She wasn't what I expected. The propaganda broadcasts showed a remote, austere ruler, but the woman before me radiated power and intelligence, her silver eyes holding mine with amused confidence. Your Majesty, I managed, lowering the disruptor slightly. Isn't it past your bedtime? A smile played at the corners of her mouth. I find I sleep poorly when thieves are about to make off with my crown. Fair point. I glanced toward the window, calculating escape routes. Your accomplice has been apprehended, she said, as if reading my thoughts. Though I suspect they were merely following your lead, Kai Blackwood. My blood froze. You know who I am. I know everything about you. She moved closer, her flowing garments shimmering like captured nebulae. Your reputation precedes you. Though I confess, I expected someone taller. Before I could respond, royal guards flooded the chamber. I was surrounded, disarmed, and on my knees in seconds. Take him to the holding cells, the Queen commanded, then paused, studying me with curious intensity. No. On second thought, prepare the Azure Suite in the East Wing. It seems I've found my new project. As the guards hauled me away, the Queen's enigmatic smile followed me. I'd come to steal a crown and had lost my freedom instead. But something in her eyes told me this was just the beginning of a very different game than the one I'd intended to play. The Azure Suite was a prison masquerading as luxury. Cerulean tapestries adorned walls of polished stone that shimmered with embedded stardust. A balcony offered breathtaking views of Astrea Prime's 3 moons, and a sheer drop of several thousand meters. The force field was invisible until tested, which I discovered when I hurled a decorative orb through what appeared to be open air, only to watch it disintegrate on contact. Testing the boundaries already, Mr. Blackwood? Queen Alara stood in the doorway, having exchanged her formal attire for something more casual but no less regal, a fitted garment of shifting silver that accentuated her lithe form. "Occupational hazard," I replied, turning to face her. "I'm surprised you didn't throw me in the dungeons with Nova." "Your accomplice has been released," she said, entering the room with predatory grace. "Consider it a gesture of goodwill." "And what am I to consider this?" I gestured around the room. "House arrest. I've had worse accommodations. This is not punishment, Kai. It's assessment." She moved to a console near the wall and pressed her palm against it. A holographic display materialized between us, showing a rotating image of the celestial crown. "Do you know what you tried to steal? A very expensive tiara?" Her expression darkened. "This tiara contains technology capable of controlling our entire planetary defense system. In the wrong hands, it could leave us vulnerable to invasion from the hegemony. Is that what your employer wanted?" The realization hit me like a gravitational punch. I'd been set up as a pawn in an interstellar conflict. I was told it was a symbolic target. High value, low consequence. And you believe that? She circled me slowly. "A thief of your caliber should be more discerning about clients." "I'm more discerning about payment," I countered, though her words stung my professional pride. 5 million credits tends to dull critical thinking. 5 million? She laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. "The Crown's technology alone is worth billions. Someone wanted to start a war on the cheap, using you as their instrument." I felt a chill run through me. "Who hired me, then?" "That's what you're going to help me discover." She approached until we were mere inches apart. Her scent was intoxicating, something alien and familiar all at once, like stardust and cinnamon. "You're now my personal attendant, Kai Blackwood. You'll accompany me to state functions, attend private meetings, be seen at my side. We'll let your mysterious client believe you've been compromised, or seduced." "And have I?" The words escaped before I could stop them. Her smile was dangerous. "That depends on how well you play your role." She reached out, trailing fingers along my jawline, her touch electric. "I need someone with your particular skills, someone outside the palace hierarchy. In return for your cooperation, I'm prepared to be generous." The implication hung in the air between us. I swallowed hard. "And if I refuse? Then the dungeons remain an option." Her hand dropped away. "But I don't think you will. You're curious. About me, about the crown, about what game we're really playing." She was right, damn her. The thief in me couldn't resist a mystery, and the man in me couldn't deny the pull I felt toward her, dangerous as that attraction might be. "What happens next, Your Majesty?" "Tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, you'll be fitted for appropriate attire. Tomorrow evening, we attend the celestial ball together." She moved toward the door, pausing to glance back. "And Kai? Don't try to escape. The security measures would kill you before you reached the ground level, and I'd be terribly disappointed." After she left, I explored every centimeter of my gilded cage, searching for weaknesses. I found none. The technology was beyond even my expertise, and the few servants who delivered meals or adjusted room settings watched me with eyes that missed nothing. That night, I dreamed of silver eyes and crowns of starlight, of falling from great heights into waiting arms. I woke tangled in silken sheets, my body tense with unfulfilled desire. My prison uniform arrived the next morning, expertly tailored formalwear in midnight blue with silver accents that matched the Queen's colors. The message was clear: I belonged to her now, an accessory to royal power. As I adjusted the final clasp at my throat, I caught my reflection in the polished wall. I barely recognized myself in these elegant clothes, cleaned up and groomed like a prized pet. But beneath the royal trappings, I was still Kai Blackwood, the greatest thief in the star system. And if Queen Alara wanted to keep me in a cage, she'd soon learn what every previous captor had discovered: no prison could hold me for long. Not even one as seductive as hers. The celestial ball was ostensibly a celebration of the summer solstice, but I recognized a political battlefield when I saw one. Beneath the veneer of revelry, the flowing drinks, the ethereal music, the dancers floating on anti-gravity platforms, alliances were forming and fracturing with each careful conversation. I stood at Queen Alara's side, playing my part as the tamed thief. My fitted attire marked me as her possession, and the subtle neural restraint bracelet on my wrist, disguised as an ornate piece of jewelry, ensured I couldn't stray far. Ambassador Torvald approaches, I murmured to her, having memorized the dossier she'd provided. 3 o'clock, with the hegemony attaché. Alara's lips barely moved as she responded, excellent observation. The hegemony doesn't usually send representatives to our solstice celebrations. The ambassador, a towering figure with scaled skin that shimmered like opals, bowed deeply. Your Majesty, radiant as always. I see you've acquired a new companion. This is Kai, she said, her hand possessively resting on my forearm. He provides a unique perspective on security matters. Torvald's multifaceted eyes narrowed. Indeed. Security is paramount these days. There are whispers of unrest in the outer systems. Whispers often reach your ears first, Ambassador, Alara replied smoothly. Perhaps we could discuss them privately? Kai, fetch us refreshments while the ambassador and I step onto the terrace. It was a dismissal, but also an opportunity. As I moved through the crowd, I activated the miniature recording device embedded in my cufflink, a palace security tool that Alara herself had provided, unaware that I'd modified it to transmit to the secure data cache I'd established in my quarters. At the refreshment table, I encountered a woman in diplomatic dress whose insignia marked her as part of the hegemony delegation. Her smile was practiced, but her eyes were shrewd. So you're the Queen's new pet, she said, accepting the crystalline flute of sparkling liquid I offered. The famous thief who failed. I maintained my composure. And you are? Vex Marlowe, Deputy Consul. She sipped her drink. We have mutual acquaintances, I believe. I doubt that. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Your employer was disappointed by your performance. The crown remains on the Queen's head, and you're wearing her colors instead of delivering the goods. My blood froze, but I forced a bored expression. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Her finger traced the rim of her glass. 5 million credits. A symbolic target. Low consequence. She echoed the very words I'd spoken to Alara. Before I could respond, I felt a familiar presence at my back. Making friends, Kai? Alara's voice was light, but I detected the edge beneath. Vex bowed gracefully. Your Majesty. I was just complimenting you on your taste in attendance. How kind. Alara's smile didn't reach her eyes. If you'll excuse us, I require Kai's assistance. She led me through a hidden panel in the ballroom wall into a narrow corridor. Once alone, her composure faltered. That woman is dangerous, she hissed. What did she say to you? I hesitated only briefly before deciding on honesty. She knows about my contract. The exact terms. She's connected to whoever hired me. Alara's expression hardened. As I suspected. The hegemony wants the defense systems controlled by my crown. With them disabled, they could launch an invasion under the pretense of restoring order. Why tell me this? I'm still your prisoner. Her silver eyes searched mine. Because I need to know if I can trust you, Kai. Really trust you. The intensity between us shifted, the air suddenly charged with something beyond political intrigue. She stepped closer, her hand rising to rest against my chest. There are factions within my own court working with the hegemony, she said softly. I can't be certain who remains loyal. But you, an outsider with no allegiance except to yourself, might be my only ally. That's a dangerous assumption, I warned, though my hand had somehow found its way to her waist. I'm a dangerous queen. Her body pressed against mine, the heat of her penetrating the fine fabric of my uniform. And you're a dangerous man. Perhaps that's why. She didn't finish the thought. Instead, her lips found mine in a kiss that started as calculation but quickly blazed into something genuine. My hands tangled in her star-bright hair as the kiss deepened, reason drowning in sudden desire. When we broke apart, breathless, the look in her eyes had transformed from political calculation to raw hunger. This isn't part of your punishment, she whispered against my lips. This is something else entirely. Then what is it? I asked, my voice rough with wanting. A complication, she admitted, stepping back slightly though her hand still gripped my shoulders. One neither of us can afford right now. She took a steadying breath. Tonight, we gather intelligence. Tomorrow. She left the promise unspoken as we returned to the ball, maintaining our roles while exchanging charged glances across crowded rooms. But beneath the performance, my mind worked furiously. I had identified my employer, discovered the true value of the crown, and gained the Queen's trust, perhaps even her desire. The question remained, would I betray her as everyone expected, or had I found something in her silver eyes worth more than 5 million credits? Dawn broke over the celestial palace, bathing my quarters in pale lavender light. I hadn't slept. The events of the ball, Vex's revelation, Ilara's kiss, the conspiracy unfolding around us, had kept my mind racing through the night. I stood on the balcony, watching the twin suns rise over the crystal spires of the capital city, when my door slid open without announcement. Ilara entered, dressed not in royal finery but in a fitted combat suit of midnight blue. Her hair was pulled back severely, and her expression was grim. We've been compromised, she said without preamble, tossing a small device onto my bed. They're moving faster than I anticipated. I recognized the object, a quantum decoder capable of breaching even the palace's legendary security systems. Where did you find this? In Ambassador Torvald's quarters. After our conversation last night, I ordered a covert sweep. She paced the room with predatory energy. He's working with internal conspirators. They plan to access the Crown's systems during the Summit of 7 Stars tomorrow. Which internal conspirators? I crossed to her, close enough to catch her scent, that intoxicating blend that had haunted my dreams. I still don't know. Frustration colored her voice. My inner circle has been breached, but I can't identify the traitor. That's why I need you. I'm a thief, not a spy, I reminded her, though the distinction felt increasingly meaningless. Today, you'll be both. Her silver eyes locked with mine. I'm deactivating your restraint bracelet and giving you free reign of the palace. Find what I cannot. Use your skills to uncover who's working with the hegemony. She touched the bracelet on my wrist, pressing her thumb to its surface. The subtle hum that had been my constant companion ceased as the device fell away. You're trusting me with freedom? I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. I'm trusting you with my kingdom. Her fingers lingered on my wrist, tracing the indentation left by the bracelet. Don't make me regret it. The moment stretched between us, taut with possibility. Then she leaned forward, pressing her lips to mine in a kiss that felt less like passion and more like a seal on our pact. If I wanted to betray you, I said when we parted, I'd wait until after we found the traitor. Better to know who's offering the highest price. Her smile was sharp. Precisely why I trust you. Your self-interest aligns with mine, for now. She turned to leave but paused at the door. Be careful, Kai. The palace has eyes everywhere. Once alone, I moved quickly. First, I retrieved the data cache from my modified cufflink, reviewing the conversations I'd recorded at the ball. Nothing definitive, but patterns emerged, certain names mentioned too carefully, specific topics avoided. I created a mental map of suspicion, centering on 3 figures in Alara's inner circle: General Dorn, her military commander; Viscount Perrin, her chief diplomat; and most troublingly, Mira, her personal bodyguard since childhood. I spent the day moving through the palace like a shadow, listening at doors, slicing into secure terminals with techniques that would have earned me execution in normal circumstances. By mid-afternoon, I had eliminated General Dorn. His communications showed he was being manipulated, not collaborating, and confirmed Viscount Perrin's involvement as a middleman for the hegemony. But the true architect of the conspiracy remained elusive. I was accessing the secure archives beneath the East Wing when I sensed movement behind me. I spun, blade in hand, to find Mira watching me with cold, calculating eyes. I wondered when the Queen would set her pet thief loose, she said, her own weapon, an energy blade that hummed with lethal potential, raised defensively. "You've been busy." "You've been watching," I countered, circling slowly to position myself between her and the exit. "Since she brought you in." "An interesting choice of punishment." Her smile was glacial. "She's always had unusual tastes." "Is that why you betrayed her?" I gambled, watching her reaction. "Jealousy?" Something flickered in her eyes, not guilt, but satisfaction. "You understand nothing of what's between us. Alara has grown weak. The crown's power requires strength she no longer possesses. So you'll hand that power to the hegemony?" "No." Her blade lowered slightly. "I'll take it for myself. The hegemony believes they'll control our defenses, but once I have the crown reconfigured, I'll turn those same weapons against them. Astria will emerge stronger, with a queen who remembers how to rule through fear rather than diplomacy." "Alara trusts you," I said, edging toward the console behind me, where a silent alarm could be triggered. "With her life." "As she should. I've protected her for 20 years. I've killed for her, bled for her." Bitterness laced Myra's words. "But she refuses to see that strength must be maintained through force. The outer systems grow rebellious while she negotiates and compromises." My fingers found the alarm panel. "And what does the hegemony get from this arrangement?" "A false victory, followed by destruction when they least expect it." Her eyes narrowed as she noticed my hand position. "Don't." I slammed my palm against the panel as Mira lunged, her blade slicing through my sleeve and grazing flesh beneath. We crashed together, rolling across the polished floor in a desperate grapple. She was stronger than her slight frame suggested, trained in combat since youth. But I was fighting for more than my life. I was fighting for Alara, for the unexpected loyalty that had bloomed in me like a fever. The sound of running footsteps echoed down the corridor. Myra's face twisted with rage as she realized her plans were collapsing. With a savage twist, she broke free of my hold and fled toward a secondary exit. I staggered to my feet, blood streaming from my arm, as royal guards flooded the chamber. "The Queen," I gasped. "Where is she?" "In the throne room," one answered, eyeing my injury with suspicion. "Mira is the traitor," I managed. "She's going after Alara. Now." Understanding dawned in their eyes, and we moved as one, racing through the palace corridors toward the throne room. But a part of me knew we might already be too late. Mira had spent decades at Alara's side, she would know exactly how to strike. And Alara, who had finally begun to trust after years of isolation, would never see the betrayal coming until the blade was at her throat. We burst into the throne room with weapons drawn, only to find an eerie tableau. Alara stood by the throne, the celestial crown hovering above its pedestal beside her. And there was Mira, frozen in the act of reaching for it, her body immobilized by a containment field that shimmered with iridescent energy. "You're late, Kai," Alara said, her voice steadied despite the betrayal unfolding before her. I was beginning to think I'd have to handle this myself. Relief washed through me, followed quickly by confusion. You knew? Not until you confirmed it. Her silver eyes held a storm of emotions: pain, anger, resolve. I've been monitoring your movements through the palace. When you triggered the alarm, I accessed the security feed. I approached cautiously, wincing as the movement pulled at my wounded arm. She was planning to use the crown against both you and the hegemony. I heard. Elara circled Myra's immobilized form, studying her oldest companion with cold detachment. 20 years of loyalty, thrown away for power. Was I truly such a disappointment as a ruler? Myra's eyes blazed with defiance, though she couldn't move her lips to speak. The containment field allowed only the smallest movements, enough for breath, nothing more. The hegemony forces will still come, I warned, checking the tactical displays on the wall. Viscount Perrin has given them access codes to the planetary defense grid. Without the crown's override capabilities, they'll breach our atmosphere within hours, Elara finished grimly. And they believe they'll find a kingdom in disarray, its queen assassinated by her most trusted guard. She turned to me, decision crystallizing in her expression. Which is exactly what will let them believe. The royal guards exchanged uneasy glances as Elara outlined her plan. It was audacious, reckless, and brilliant. We would stage her assassination, allowing news to reach the hegemony forces that Mira had succeeded. Meanwhile, Elara would use the crown's true power, not just defense system control, but a quantum connection to the planetary consciousness itself, to prepare a reception the invaders wouldn't anticipate. And you, she said, turning to me as the guards dispersed to implement their part of the plan, will help me access the crown's full capabilities. Me? I raised an eyebrow. I'm the one who tried to steal it, remember? Precisely why you're perfect for this. Her hand found mine, our fingers interlacing with surprising intimacy. The crown requires two consciousnesses in perfect synchronization, one royal, one otherwise. The thief and the queen, balancing each other. Hours later, as the hegemony warships entered Astrian airspace, Elara and I stood in the ancient chamber beneath the palace, the true heart of the kingdom's power. The crown floated between us, its stellar fragments pulsing with increasing urgency. Are you certain about this? I asked, watching her discard the outer layers of her royal garments until she stood in a simple shift, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. Once we begin, there's no turning back. I've never been more certain of anything. Her voice was soft but determined. You've shown me a different perspective, Kai. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from unexpected sources. She stepped toward me, and I found myself mesmerized by the play of light across her skin, like stardust made flesh. When this is over, she continued, you'll have earned your freedom. 5 million credits transferred to an account of your choosing, and safe passage from Astria. The offer should have thrilled me. It was everything I'd come for, and more. Yet I felt only hollow disappointment. And if I chose to stay? The words escaped before I could reconsider them. Elara's eyes widened slightly. As what? My prisoner? My pet thief? As your equal, I challenged, closing the distance between us. Your partner. Her laugh was genuine, if tinged with disbelief. A common criminal and a queen? There's nothing common about either of us. I captured her face between my hands, forcing her to meet my gaze. And that's what terrifies you. For once, her royal mask slipped completely, revealing the woman beneath, brilliant, lonely, and afraid not of failure but of genuine connection. I kissed her then, pouring into it all the complications and contradictions of our unlikely alliance. The crown began to pulse more rapidly, responding to our emotional resonance. Elara broke the kiss with visible reluctance. The ships are entering the upper atmosphere, she whispered against my lips. It's time. We stood on either side of the crown, our hands hovering near its shimmering surface. As one, we reached forward, fingers brushing the strange material that was neither solid nor energy. The world exploded into light. I experienced Alara's consciousness merging with mine, her memories becoming my memories, her thoughts flowing through me like quicksilver. I felt the weight of a kingdom on slender shoulders, the isolation of power, the constant vigilance against betrayal. And she, in turn, experienced my life, the thrill of the heist, the freedom of owning nothing but your skills, the loneliness of trusting no one. Together, our joined consciousness expanded through the Crown's network, reaching every defense system, every communications array, every particle of the planetary shield. We felt the hegemony ships approaching, confident in their supposed advantage. And together, we sprung the trap. The invading fleet found themselves suddenly enmeshed in a quantum field that rendered their weapons useless and their ships immobile. Simultaneously, evidence of the conspiracy, including Viscount Perrin's communications with hegemony leaders, was broadcast across all diplomatic channels in the 7-star systems. When we finally released our hold on the crown, collapsing into each other's arms, the hegemony force had been neutralized, the conspiracy exposed, and a new era of Astrian power established. It worked, Alara whispered, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. We did it. We did, I agreed, brushing sweat-dampened hair from her forehead. Though I think I prefer stealing crowns to wearing them. Her laugh was weary but genuine. Is that your way of declining my unspoken offer? To help you rule? I pretended to consider it. I'd make a terrible king. But perhaps. I traced the line of her jaw with my thumb. The queen might benefit from a royal advisor with expertise in unconventional problem-solving. A royal thief? Her smile turned mischievous. It would scandalize the court. Good. I pulled her closer. They could use some scandalizing. 3 days later, as Astria celebrated its victory and mourned its false queen, publicly believed dead until all conspirators could be identified, Alara and I stood on the balcony of her private chambers, watching the 3 moons rise. Your freedom awaits, she said softly. The credits have been transferred as promised. I turned to her, taking in her silver eyes and the subtle curve of her lips, no longer just a queen to me, but a woman I had come to admire, desire, and perhaps even love. I think, I said, drawing her into my arms, that I've stolen quite enough for one lifetime. Perhaps it's time to see what honesty brings. As our lips met beneath the triple moons, I reflected that while I had failed to steal the celestial crown, I had somehow managed the far more impossible heist, capturing the heart of a queen who had never intended to be caught.